it's like a gigantic puzzle, isn't it, Barry? And every time I've thought, oh, I'm ready, I've gone, oh, there's a missing piece there that I don't have.
Welcome to the Active Marketer Podcast, where we talk about how to design, automate, and scale your business to the next level using sales and marketing automation. You can find out all the tips, tactics, and techniques you need to get more customers and sell more stuff over at theactivemarketer.com. Now, here's your host, Barry Moore.
Welcome to the Active Marketer Podcast. I'm your host, Barry Moore, and this is the podcast that's all about sales funnels and marketing automation. This week, we're going to check back in with Cate Richards in our ongoing series of marketing automation case study, following her along in her journey from a standing start with nothing to getting all her marketing automation, all her sales funnels up and running, and her products selling online. So this is kind of a long one, so we're going to dive straight into this week's catch-up with Cate Richards. I'd like to welcome back to the show Cate Richards, and if you haven't listened, we've been having an ongoing case study checking in with Cate along the way. She builds out her marketing for her new product, mostly because Cate is kind of one of the avatars for my community and in my products. I thought it'd be great to follow her through her journey of product creation, marketing automation, creating sales funnel, and getting it up and running. So welcome back, Cate.
Thank you, Barry. Good to be here.
Now, catch the listener up on where we're up to with you.
Well, I think the listeners are going to say that Cate has been a little bit slow in developing her funnel, and the listeners might be right, or it might just be the kind of pace I've been going because ideas and things are still developing in my mind, and so it's like a gigantic puzzle, isn't it, Barry? And every time I've thought I'm ready, here's my pieces, I've gone, oh, there's a missing piece there that I don't have. And I've kind of done a little bit of a spin around and taken a little bit more time and had to fill in another piece. But that said, so where are we at? Starting from the bottom, my product has been beta tested quite a few times over and has been in market tests really successful. And I'm actually really thrilled with the response to it and what Brand 360 has kind of given to the people that it's been tested for. And so everybody has had a very common and strong positive response to the benefits. So that's really good. So I worked for a couple of months last year developing that product, and I think the work I've done in product development and everything is really paying off. So that's good. So I've done a sales page. So I did actually 2 sales pages. I wrote a whole sales page that I eventually threw away, and I just didn't feel that it was nailing my avatar well enough. The problem with branding, or the problem with my product, Brand 360, is that I've had to kind of sell the pain that the solution kind of matches. So it's not like anybody's going around going, this is a problem for me, this is a problem for me. So that from a sales page perspective has been really good. From a product perspective, it's awesome because I had white space and I had a bit of a blue ocean kind of product. So I know that there's nothing else out there that does what Brand 360 does for the price that it does. So from that perspective, as of right now, I don't have any competition. But the difficult part of that is in the marketing and selling of it. You have to first, create the pain to, create the need for which your product is a solution. And so my first sales page was all around, planting doubts in people's minds that they had problems in their brand and things like that. And then I realized, no, I think that my ideal client, of which you are one, Barry, is somebody who's already good. They may be an instinctive marketer. They don't have any kind of background in brand strategy and stuff, but they're very interested in it. They learn very fast. They've done a lot of things right by instinct. It's just that they might have a blind spot between the level they're at and the level that they really need to be with the ambitions and the potential of their business. So as you know, Barry, you are perfect, fit into that avatar. And so I had to rewrite the second sales page for that person. And, well, I don't know. That's my first big sales page ever. And I, of course, me being me, decided, I better study copywriting in order to do this. So that sent me on about another month's loop of work. But, I don't know. I'm happy with it now. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure there'll be plenty of tweaks and tests. But my kind of hook there is all around, having a blind spot, getting too close to your work, not having any kind of sounding board, not having any kind of perspective or objective sort of measurement of how you're going. And I think you would say, Barry, that's kind of what I gave you is I go, Barry, you're doing these 7 out of 10 things really well. So just feel validated, feel confident you're doing that well. But here's 3 things that I think you could rapidly improve. And I just don't think as entrepreneurs we get that kind of feedback and there's no way to go and buy it, or there hasn't been up till now. So that's kind of why I started Brand 360.
All right, I want to loop back to a couple points there that you made, and I think some of the listeners will probably have the same thing going on. First of all, I want to loop back to your speed of implementation. Now, I'm not going to beat you up for being slow or fast. You go as fast as you want to go. But I think there's a happy spot. Like the thing I've seen with my clients that surprised me is, I thought at first a lot of them would be, I have these technical issues. I don't know how to implement this. I need the tech stack or whatever, or the sales funnel or whatever in place. And I could give them that and they would be off to the races. But what I'm finding is that there's actually a mindset issue behind that as well. Like some people are just afraid to sell, and you can give them the best sales funnel in the world, or the best marketing automation systems in the world, and they won't do anything with them because there's a bit of a, fear factor there. And some of it is what you said. Some of it's like you want it to be perfect. And
yes,
and you can go on in ever increasing circles trying to make it more and more and more perfect. I don't know what the exact quote is, but there's something like 80% now is better than 100% never. Right. So
yeah. I'm really guilty of that. I'm the first to put up my hand and say that. But actually, in my case, I'm going to defend myself a little bit and say it's a kind of it's such a deep value for me that it's like trying to be excellent is actually part of my own identity. To try and get that out is, like that, man, and that's an ongoing process for me. And the other thing is too, my big business, that I had to start it that way. Like I pre-sold stuff that I didn't even know how to deliver. And that went on for years. And that was like traumatizing for me. Like I spent years with adrenal fatigue and, that was me working against type the whole time. So now I'm in an almost perfect kind of situation where I have one business funding the other one. My new one, I don't have, I'd love to be making money this week, but I don't have a huge pressure on me to do that. So I didn't have a deadline. I didn't have this. And I just was loving my life, Barry. So it's kind of like, do you know what? I'm, as I said, and everyone accuses me of this. You're not the first. You won't be the last. And, I think once I'm going, but that from the life I have right now today to my next chapter, when I turn this page and I start selling, is going to change. And I think I've had a little bit of resistance to that change. And it's not fear. It's actually resistance to the quality of my days, the space in my days, and quite a few other things. And I think I keep wondering if at some level, unacknowledged, I keep on finding more things to do to slow me down. So so that it's just another week till I turn that page. But I've got to suck it up, and I've got to do it.
All right, we're going to take a sidetrack detour here and get a little bit more philosophical than we normally get on the show. But I think one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is, what do you really want? And if you sit down and you ask yourself that, it's a hard question to answer. I've done it myself. Sit down with a journal. What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? And it's a hard question to answer. And until you answer that, all the other kind of pieces don't, like I think you sent an email to me. You feel like there's a bunch of puzzle pieces and they're kind of all over the place and not quite fitting together. And I think in my own life, that's been an indication that I haven't been clear on what I want. And what I want is a big question, and there's different levels to it. So it's like, what do I want on my personal life? What do I want on my business life? What do I want my day to look like at work? Do I want it to be 20 hours long so I can say I've accomplished a bunch of stuff, or do I want to go for a surf in the afternoon or whatever? So, not to get too woo-woo, but I think that's an important question because it reflects on all the other stuff as to like, when is this product ready to launch? Well, it's ready to launch when you feel it's good enough. And I do believe in the power of deadlines, though, that at some point you've got to take action, right? So, and the hard bit is knowing, I think in your case, and a lot of people's cases, knowing when that is, right? When is this good enough to pull the trigger? And I think that can be a decision you make before you even start. You say, right, when I have these things in place, that'll be good enough. And you also have to remember that your product it's not a tattoo. Yeah, you can change it. And so if you launch it on, August 1st, you can change it on August 2nd and August 3rd and August 4th, right? It's a great thing about the internet. So, and you'll find that it's probably, the audience probably doesn't want quite what you think they want, and you're going to have to kind of be flexible anyway. So, for anybody out there who's struggling to launch, I would say come up with some launch criteria and say, right, these are the things I need to have in place before I go. And when I've got those, I'm going. And one of the great pieces of advice I got once was, if you want to be good at something, be comfortable with sucking at it for a little while first. So,
yep. Oh, no, that's, look, I can just, what, I mean, this is advice I give other people. It's just I haven't really given it to myself. And, I haven't set a deadline. And I think that's been, but on my other hand, I just realized this morning when I was writing in my journal, I do morning pages, Barry, which is where you write kind of what's in your head. It's sort of in place of meditating, which doesn't work for me as well. But I write morning pages, and I was thinking about this very thing, and I realized that, and I just mentioned it earlier, I've just been so happy with my life the last few months, the last 4 or 5 months, and the way my days are structured and the quality of my time and the space in my days and all of that. And what I realized was that when I launch, when things change, I'm frightened of losing that, and I have to figure out a way to protect it. But what I'm thinking is that somewhere in my brain has been this either or, this like I'll flick a switch and then all this halcyon creative cave that I've had will be over. But what I need to do is go, so this is very woo-woo. Sorry for the people out there that aren't very woo-woo. What I need to do is go, okay, I can protect and preserve the things that have given me such great contentment, and still get excited about making money and stuff, because I'm really clear on what I want. And I actually really need this business to start making money now, because I want to sell my other business and I have to replace the income from one to the other. And that's a couple of $100,000 that I've got to replace before I can sell it. So, I'm on the way. I promise. I know. But what you've challenged me there with is a deadline. And so when we get off the call, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to go, August the 1st, I want to be out there selling. So that'll be good.
All right. And for my buddy Paul, who's I'm constantly haranguing, I hope you're listening. Now, I want to loop a little back up the woo train a little bit and go back to yourself.
Okay. Sorry. Woo over everybody. We're getting back to the practicalities now.
Let's go back to that sales page. And there's a couple of interesting points that you brought up there, and I want to kind of loop back to. One is that, you started writing a sales page, and then you scratched it and started over again. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can rewrite it as many times as you need to. But I think what people misunderstand a little bit is that you might have an avatar, but that avatar has a journey from point A to point B. So that avatar's awareness is going to change. So the messaging that you use to influence them is going to change as well. So a lot of kind of funnel guys have different names for these stages, but I kind of break it down into 3, which is awareness, engagement, and conversion, right? So the first stage is awareness. So if someone's never heard of you before, the first thing they have to do is hear of you and know about you and be aware of you, right? So you have to build awareness with that person. And not only awareness of you, but you mentioned it as well, is awareness of the problem that they have. And that's kind of sometimes referred to as a bridge, right? You have to build a pre-framed bridge to that person. It says, they don't know why you need your product unless you highlight the problems that they have that your product solves. So that kind of awareness phase has different messaging to it than someone who's a little bit further down the track. In the engagement phase, right? In the engagement phase, people are interacting with your content. They're downloading your PDFs and your lead magnets and stuff. They're sending emails back and forth. They're opening, they're clicking. They're engaged with your content. So they're a little bit further down that train track of towards conversion. So they're going to need different messaging as well. So it's almost, well, it's not almost, it is, you do need kind of almost 2 sales pages, one for cold traffic, who's never heard of you before, and then to build that pre-frame bridge, and then one for warm traffic who's already aware of their problem. They just need to know of, what's the results I'm going to get out of your product, rather than I didn't even know I had this problem, let alone how I could solve it. So, you may find that you need more than 1 sales page, and you would direct people to that depending on where they are in that kind of stage of the funnel. Does that make sense?
Well, now you've added something to my list.
Now you got to go do another sales page.
Now my deadline might get pushed back.
No, sorry. That's just...
No, that's fine.
Clearly you don't understand the difference to the word deadline.
I think writing one sort of epic sales page it's a great exercise, because what I did is I think I mentioned I studied a bit of copywriting, and I looked for a lot of different frameworks and then sort of looked at the commonalities between them. And as you very rightly said, it's all about a journey, and it's all about initially meeting people where they are, and you have to stop them in their tracks as well. So that was challenging too. So, and then the other thing that comes up is a lot of this idea of agitating pain. And I actually am naturally very resistant to that. And I know I posted in a couple of groups about this whole area of who's comfortable with agitating pain versus who's comfortable with building the kind of vision of what you're going to have and leading people there. So I wasn't, I kind of left the pain agitation. That was in my first version. It was a lot of, you're doing all this wrong. You don't know you're doing it wrong because you're hopeless. And how could you know? And, all this stuff is limiting you. And I decided to kind of leave all that whole tone behind in the second page, and talk more just to the aspiration. And I kind of refer to my people as the good to great people. And I know they're the same people you target as well, Barry. So, but you're right. You're quite right. There are people that are going to have never, ever heard my name. And then obviously I have quite a large network of people that already perceive me to be a brand specialist. So, hopefully they won't need as much convincing that I'm the person to help them.
Well, that's an interesting psychological phenomenon, the pleasure and pain thing, the aspiration and the desperation. But I think you need a little bit of a mixture of both, and I don't think you need to agitate the pain so much as some people do. But it's kind of a well-known psychological phenomenon that people will act more readily and more zealously to avoid pain or loss aversion, the psychological factor of loss aversion, than they will to gain a benefit, right?
I didn't entirely leave it out, but what I did leave out was the you're in pain because you're stupid kind of tone. I decided to change the tone up from these are mistakes you're making that you don't know you're making kind of thing. And I kind of changed the pain to being around uncertainty and guesswork and second guessing and just not being able to benchmark yourself and measure yourself, and all the benefits that come from that with respect to the actions that are going to flow from a review that has an independent panel involved. The actions that are going to flow for that are going to be, right, okay, if I do these 6 things, clearly my scores would have been better. Therefore, they're going to be worth doing. So that's kind of where I went in the end. I just didn't want to – I didn't like – and yeah, a lot of the advice you get from people that don't know you very well is all, tell people that they're shit at branding and how that's affecting them. And I'm like, well, a lot of my clients actually aren't that shit at it, but they just don't know what they don't know. And they may be just missing a few little pieces that could just make a huge difference. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you need to go with the pain component being that you're stupid. But
yeah, no, I didn't. But that's the sales page I dropped.
But you can,
and I dropped it because I just I think it was an effective sales page. I think it probably would have worked, but in my gut and the kind of person I want to be in the world, it was out of alignment with me. And I'm like, I just don't think I can put this out there. And that was kind of, as I said, Barry, before, a lot of this stuff is still emerging in me. Even what I think in some ways is emerging. And I think when you go and study and you immerse yourself in stuff, you get, you go, oh, now I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And you can lose yourself, your own values and your own kind of thing you want to be in the world because you're being too influenced by outside voices. And so I struggle with that. And I thought, no, I'm putting aside that outside voice and I'm going to write a sales page where I could look someone straight in the eye and say, this is how you're going to benefit from, undertaking this process.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the way to use the loss aversion in a authentic way with integrity and not be a douchebag is to paint the consequences of what happens if they don't solve that problem.
Yeah.
So clearly your product solves a problem, right? So there's a possibility or a paradise that, once you have this problem solved, this is what the paradise looks like. But there's also the pain or the problem is if there are consequences to not solving that problem, right? So you can paint that by saying, look, I call it the price and the cost, right? So you've got the price of getting something that you want, but there's also the cost of you not getting it, right? So, for example, as we talked about before the call, I'm training for a marathon. The price of that is I've got to go out and run a lot. And I knocked out 30 kilometers. A lot. I knocked out 30 kilometers on Sunday. I didn't want to. I wasn't excited about putting my, when my little GPS went off and said 1 kilometer. Oh, okay. Well, I got 29 left. But I had to pay that price. And if I don't pay that price, then the cost is I don't get to achieve my goal, right? I show up at the marathon and I go to all that time and all that trouble and I can't finish or get hurt or whatever. So you're either going to pay the price or you're going to pay the cost. So I don't leave that out. Don't leave that out of your sales message that there's a real consequence to not taking action. So you're not only competing against other products, you're competing against someone taking no action whatsoever, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So make sure that you.
Well, actually, I think that's your biggest competition. I don't think for a lot of our products, people are comparing apples with apples. It's not like iSelect where you go on and you go, well, this one gives me $600 off my glasses and that one gives me, $50 off my physio or whatever. It's not, it can't, a lot of people's decisions in our world are not made in a spreadsheet. It's sort of, yes, I'm going to do this, or no, that's just not going to be an investment I make. So I think you're really good. I think I might just open it back up again this afternoon and have another look at those consequences, Barry, because I don't think that's an area I probably have dwelt on. So that's a real opportunity. So thank you for saying that. Well, I will definitely do that.
Cool. All right. So we've got the sales page down. And so what's the next step for you? What's kind of the next hurdle for you to go?
Well, one thing I would want to ask you about is I decided, in trying to get things out there, I just went with PayPal buttons so I use Divi. I have Thrive themes as well, but I used divvy for this sales page. So a pricing table, and then within the pricing table, I've just added a PayPal button code, which I did years ago, and I remember it being so easy. I had an ebook, I think maybe 7 years ago, and I remember that just being the easiest thing in the world, and this time not so much. But anyway, I did get there. But so that's just to obviously get the ball rolling, and that was an area I identified that I can really tweak, and I probably don't have to invest too much right now. But what would be sort of my next thing if I wanted more of a shopping cart, maybe with upsells, downsells, I don't know, different process options or whatever? Where would I go from just the simple PayPal button?
Yeah, that is a really big can of worms, that one. I've in the last 6 months, I've kind of gone through and had a look at, I don't know, maybe a dozen different shopping cart systems in the last couple of months.
Oh, that's fun, Barry. That's not something you just do on a Monday night.
It's exciting, isn't it? And the conclusion I came to at the end of it is they all kind of suck a little bit. And the reason they all kind of suck a little bit is because unless you're really clear about what you need it to do, right? If you just sit down on this typical software stuff, but if you sit down and even if it's just a list of bullet points, write out a list of requirements that you have. This is what I need the thing to do. And then compare it against that list. Like, so instead of just going, oh yeah, I want something to buy, I guarantee a couple of weeks down the track, you're going to go, I wanted to do this. Oh yeah. And I wanted to do that. And I wanted to do this other thing.
That's right. That's what I find with every software decision I make, Barry. I try and I think I've thought of everything, and then, then you get into it and you're testing it out, and then suddenly it can't do something really fundamental that you forgot to ask about. So I find that very paralyzing myself.
Back in the days when I was an IT executive and people come in and say, we need to buy this system. I'm like, well, what do you want it to do? What do you mean? Where are the requirements what do you need? And they're like, what are you talking about? Like people, they don't, it seems to be human nature that you want to rush to a solution before you define the problem. But so here's some things to consider. I don't know what shopping cart is going to be right for you, but things to consider are, do you need recurring subscription payments, right? So if it's a monthly or yearly or quarterly or whatever that yearly recurring payment's going to be, that's kind of going to narrow the field down a little bit. If you want to do the upsells or downsells, like you said, like if you want to have someone checks out with product A and it says, hey, do you want product B as well? Then that's going to be something that limits the field a little bit. If you want to take PayPal and credit card or credit card, as in credit card not through PayPal, as in an independent credit card thing, that's another thing to consider. If you want to, do you want to take PayPal at all, or is just credit card good enough? And there's some interesting things that I found out in our mutual friend Sean found out as well when he started his membership community is, there's a significant number of people that want to pay by PayPal, which would choose to do so if you gave them the choice. Now, if you didn't give them the choice, would they still go ahead and buy with a credit card? I don't know. But
but you don't want to limit, you don't want to lose sales when you've done all the work to get somebody there. Well, you don't want that to be a reason that you lose sales.
No, well, here's
you don't offer them the right. And the other thing is too, like whether you should offer a split pay or something, a 2-pay or 3-pay or, it's hard.
And that's something you're only going to figure out once you start getting some customers at the door. Well,
that's right. And that's why I've just gone with the, kind of bare minimum one-off PayPal. And even that with the GST and everything was really tricky. So GST is our tax, sorry. So basically anyone who buys Australian products from overseas is going to get charged less at the checkout than what the price says, because we have to include our tax in the price that shows. And yet at the checkout it gets added as plus 10%.
Yeah. And
that would be the case in other countries too that have,
Yeah, so there's that all kind of local tax versus non-local tax stuff. Is there, but if you just have PayPal and someone wants to pay with a credit card, you're introducing that little extra bit of friction there because it's a bit of pain in the ass to pay with a credit card by PayPal. Someone's got to know to click the little button and boom. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but I would suggest you write down and test a few of them. The other thing to be wary of is a lot of the the platforms that do recurring payments. So if you have like people paying whatever $100 a month, whatever it is, they'll store the recurring payment information on the shopping cart side rather than the payment gateway side. So what I mean by that is, for example, Stripe is a payment gateway. It will process the credit card payment for you. You can store the subscription plan in Stripe, and Stripe will just every month Stripe will bill that person. But what some of the shopping cart makers do is they'll store the recurring information in the shopping cart, and then like once a month they'll just push a new transaction to Stripe rather than creating a subscription plan in Stripe. Which means if you ever decide to change shopping carts, which I've done at least 3 times now,
you've got to go and get all that again from
you've got to get all your customers to re-sign up again.
I tell you, big opportunity here for somebody to sweep in and like all the things you mentioned where you said if you want recurring or this, if you want Stripe or PayPal, you want like upsells, downsells, cross-sells. Like, I mean, surely that could all be put into one, couldn't it?
It is much. I'm a little bit surprised. Like when I started digging a bit deeper and deeper, I'm a little bit surprised how immature the shopping cart space actually is. There's a lot of spot solutions that are good for one or two things, but I haven't come across one shopping cart that's great at everything. So there's an opportunity there for someone who wants to really kill it. But But the moral of the story, make sure that you know what you need before you go implementing something. Right.
Well, thank you for that, because now you've made me go, well, I think I'll just stick with my little PayPal buttons a little bit longer and maybe tweak some other elements before I go digging into that. Now, I don't know if the listeners know, I think anyone who heard me before knows I'm a little bit tech resistant, wouldn't you say, Barry? Because I've had some poor experiences in the past.
Well, everybody has.
But I am really happy. I have to say, ActiveCampaign and Thrive leads. I bought Thrive themes as well, the whole suite, and started doing my kind of webinar sign-up pages and landing pages with the Thrive
Content
themes.
Builder,
Yeah, the Content Builder, sorry. As long as I've kept them simple, that's good. For my pages, I'm still using Divi because I had learned that one. And I'm just a bit resistant to, I guess, the time I need to expend on learning curve frustration, and it's both the time and the actual energy around it that I'm resistant to. So I think I'm the kind of person where once something's working, I'm like, okay, that's working. And as anyone who's listened to my earlier things, I'm enormously grateful to Barry for putting me just straight into the Thrive Leads ActiveCampaign connection, because I mean, you see that everywhere now. Everyone recommends that combination, and I think it's worked really well for me. So, So are we up to? Did you finish? We finished on the shopping cart thing, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we're going to go up a level now to the next part of my funnel.
Sure.
Which is a online workshop, and I'm thinking, and I know you have a view on this, I'm probably going to make that an evergreen webinar where people can jump in at any time and watch it. I'm going to make it kind of 90 minutes, and it is a bit of a roll up sleeves, and it's a workshop. And the workshop is about what I call the magic words, which is the 20 words that are above the fold on your website that position you and talk about what you do and why you do it. So it's also sometimes called a value proposition. It's sometimes called above the fold content. It's called a lot of different things. Brand positioning statement, sometimes called a USP for product brands, where the brand and product are the same thing. So it's because it's got a lot of different names and definitions, I decided to confuse it all, confuse everything and make my own name, and I call them magic words. And so what I've done is I think it's a really good piece of work. I'm proud of it. It sort of just leads people through that whole process of finding them. It's got some amazing examples. I've found, probably 25 really good examples of, above the fold copy. And of course, it includes also the button text and the call to action. And then sometimes there's some different formats that people are bringing in now that have more proof, or they have a visual process. It includes the image. So it's that whole piece that is the first thing that people see on your website that, you've only got 8 seconds to grab them and tell them what you do. So that it's all around that. And so I lead people all the way through there. And then obviously towards the end, I'm going to say introduce Brand 360 to them. One thing I do think, Barry, is that not everybody who's going to find Magic Words, the online workshop, valuable are going to be customers of Brand 360. So I'm doing it kind of for 2 reasons. I'm also doing it to kind of get better known in the market and offer a piece of content I think that's enormously valuable and very useful for people. So I was going to ask you at this point whether you think, given the success of Automation Nation, your fantastic Facebook group, whether you think I should invite people off the end of that webinar to a Facebook group where I will give them kind of some guidance and support as they're developing their magic words.
Yeah, 2 things there. One is, I wouldn't go straight to an evergreen webinar. I would run some live ones first, and I know there's probably some resistance there, but I got a great piece of advice from Russell Brunson once when I was in Boise. He said, he'll run a webinar 10, 12 times until he's got it tweaked and dialed in that it's getting a lot of conversions and it's kind of crushing it. Then he'll record that one.
Yeah.
And then
I get that.
That becomes the evergreen one, right? So I would run it live a few times first.
Yeah, because you feel people's energy and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And then you can you can react to what they're doing, what they're saying, what they're feeling, right? And you can find out what works and what doesn't work as part of your sales process, right? Or your messaging. And then record the one that works, obviously. So that's number 1. Number 2 was on the Facebook group. Yeah, so some important lessons there. And if you're just new to the podcast, by all means, join my Facebook group over at Automation Nation.
Yes, join.
Some interesting things there. One, and I think it speaks to the human need, we're going back a little bit, for inclusion and being part of a tribe, right? So people constantly seeking out a tribe to be a part of. So if you can lead that tribe and create that tribe, then obviously they're going to stick with you. And, some people will never buy and they'll just hang out, and that's cool.
Well, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah.
And then, but at least it gives them a stake in the ground that they can rally around, right? And then once the tribe starts to grow, it'll grow more. So it's been a couple surprising things that have happened in my growing that Facebook group is that one, that you make it private, which kind of gives you a higher level of control over the quality and who can get in, who can't get in. You can kick people out when they're being annoying. So you can maintain the level of quality and integrity that you want to maintain in the group. But it also gives people a bit of that sense of inclusion as well. And it gives a central place for you to rally around. People are on Facebook all day long, whether that's good or bad, or they like it or they don't like it. That's where people spend their time. So if you want to be in front of people, go where the people are. So I would suggest certainly try it. I would make it a closed group and invite people after they've been on the webinar. And then, see if you like it. That was really my minimum viable product for creating my own membership community, as well as, do I actually like leading a community, answering questions?
Well, that's right.
Answering questions all day. Let's find out.
Well.
Let's find out.
You did
right?
it so well.
So I did validate that in my own head first, that, okay, now it's worth my time to set up a private community, a paid community as well. So that would be a good indication for you whether you want to go down that route as well.
Yeah, I don't know that a paid community is in my future, but but you don't want to rule anything out. And I guess my only concern is moving people from free to paid at any point. But I think you've really done that really well. I think that's and your community is great. They're just people there are doing really well. It's very inspiring to see, someone like our mutual friend Clinton doing so well. And Clinton's very much like me. Like, he really struggled with the tech. He found it all really difficult and found it difficult when things didn't work. And then, the support that he got just to move through from that to that to that. And, now he's done 2 launches and he's really crushed it. So, great credit to you, Barry, there. But, yeah, no, I think I've actually I have a natural tendency to nurture and stuff, so I don't think I'm going to struggle having a private Facebook group. But I guess what I'll have to do is maybe just go around and invite lots of friends into there, so that when new people come in, they're not going to think, "Oh, it's tumbleweeds in here. There's no one here." So,
well, it's important that you build a tribe or a culture around you and your product.
Yeah, the culture is interesting, Barry. That's an interesting way to think about it. And I want to build a place where people can get help with stuff that is a real sticking point. This is some of the stuff that I work with people on is the hardest things that they nearly have to do in a way, which is, put their stake in the ground, because it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough to find these words. You can find the intent behind the words, and then you still have to find the words. It's kind of a 2-step process. So, and I've taken the point on board about the live webinars. What I'm going to do first, so I meet my deadline, which I've now set, is I'm actually going to just record a Wistia program, like a beta test, and I'm going to ask people that go through that for some feedback before I do it live. So, and that to me is sort of point of least resistance. I know I can get that up. I don't have to learn the Webinar Ninja, which I've just purchased. I don't have to learn that yet. I can just do the Camtasia, do the recording, put that up as a Wistia, and hopefully that will sort of start to help people straight away. So that's kind of a bit like my PayPal buttons. That's my path of least resistance. But webinars will be the next thing on the list after that. So, so that's good. So, and then up the top strata is I think I mentioned it earlier, I've been in a kind of content cave and creating a lot of content that I'm really very proud of. I don't know if my writing is as great as it could be. Certainly worked really hard on it all year. But the main piece of content, I started a post. Kate started a post. It ended up 14,000 words.
Holy moly.
I know. So, and that is called Your Complete Authority Branding Strategy. So it ended up obviously to be an ebook. So what I did with that is I decided to offer, so I did an ebook and I recorded it. So I've got recordings, sound recordings, and I also did a choice of 7 emails that come once a day. The 7 email series. So 7 or 9 actually that you can choose. So that that turned out to be. And if I've said I've been slow, that's probably the main contributor, because it turned into it went from being a blog post to a kind of 2-month project. But yeah, no, it's all done there. So with that one, I'm going to use social media and I'm going to chop out little sections of it and use them as a little bit of bait to sort of click through to the main post. And what the main post does is it's got the first, I think, 3,000 words, and then at that point it breaks and says the rest is available either in this ebook, in this email series, or in this audio series. So I don't know how that's going to go. I hadn't seen anyone else do it that way. I'm sure other people do, but that's going to do. But, within that I've got the opportunity to put different sections of it. It's almost like 7. It's almost like 5 posts joined together. So there's different sections that I could publish on LinkedIn, for example, that I can do bits left. So my kind of next thing after I just record that webinar, which is this week's thing, is I'm going to get together with our good friend Alana, and I'm going to help and get her help with just kind of working myself out a little social media it will be a paid campaign on Facebook. And the goal is just to put up some interesting content that will get people to click through, and I'll get that pixel, and then I'll retarget those people with an invitation to the webinar.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Well, that sounds good.
Yeah. So why has that taken me 5 months, Barry? I don't know.
because it has.
Because I'm a crazy person. Well, I should also tell the listeners I have another big business that I work on 20 hours a week.
Sitting around watching Springer.
I kind of, it's just only part-time at the moment. So, yeah. And I mean that, the thing is, everybody in my situation where you've created a business, put in a management team and walked away from it, you think it's kind of like, oh, there's paradise for you. But it's a bit like creating a garden. I think, there's only so long you can leave the garden and not attend to the garden before the garden might start to take on, different attributes of a garden that you don't like. So, and you have to kind of go back and work a bit of your magic over there. But, on the other hand, I'm very proud that I've worked myself into that position. And I did want to say, at the risk of going back to the woo-woo after we promised that we wouldn't, I wouldn't want to encourage anyone who sort of is feeling that they're very stuck in their business or it's not the business that they want, because that was the situation I was in 3 or 4 years ago. And I started to do something for my future self every day. And I started to just create some time to envision and then to start to create my new venture, and also put things in place within that business. I built the systems, I recruited people, I started cross-training people, I started doing all of those things to eventually let me walk away. And I think, and I've alluded to it a few times, how happy I've been this year. And that's because of all those things I did 3 years ago and 2 years ago that were really hard at the time. I did those for this year. I did them for this year. I did it so I could reap the benefits of having a year like this where, I could have 6 months to work on my new project and bring it to life in a way that I'm really proud of. So I would encourage anyone in that situation, just build out your systems, envision yourself out of that business, start looking towards what you do want, as we talked about earlier, Barry, and, just make sure that you're doing something every day towards that. And somehow it happens. It does. Somehow it happens.
Yeah. And since we're on the woo-woo train, one of my other mentors told me once, hitting a single every day is much more powerful than hitting a home run every now and then. So, because they build on each other, right? You hit one, hit two, hit three, hit four, hit five. And, after the third one, every single you hit's knocking them run in, using a baseball metaphor, which the Australians might not understand. But, if you want something to change, just take a single action every day to make that happen. And before you know it, you're there. Cool. All right, Kate,
that's very good. Oh, thank you so much, Barry.
I look forward to hearing it.
And thank you for your advice.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing the results of getting this sales funnel up and running, and we'll check back in you once it's been going for a little while.
Unreal.
All right.
I look forward to it.
Thanks, Kate. I'd like to thank Kate for coming on the show and being so open about her journey with getting her business set up online. If you want to check out the show notes and get any of the links we've mentioned in the show, head over to theactivemarketer.com/62, the number 62, and that's where you can find all the show notes. If you need some help getting all your sales funnels and marketing automation set up, that's what we specialize in over at the Active Marketer Insiders. It is a private community for smart business owners just like you who just need a little bit of help to get their sales funnels, marketing automation humming, and really leverage their online business to design, automate, and scale all your sales processes. So if you want to find out more, head over to theactivemarketer.com/members. And you can get all the information. And if you have any questions, just shoot me an email at Barry, BARRY, @theactivemarketer.com. So we'll be back next week with another interview. In the meantime, get out there, design, automate, and scale your business to the next level with sales and marketing automation. See you, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Active Marketer Podcast. You can find the show notes and all the latest marketing automation news over at theactivemarketer.com.